Hello, so we're going to pick back up on turn 26. But before I go on, I just want to dip in and clarify that the Striker I'm talking about is the air transportable family of vehicles, not the Striker air transportable family of vehicles. In some respects, I'm glad I don't have the same problem with Javelin missiles and Javelin missiles, which I suppose are Milan and blowpipe replacements. But anyway, for the next few turns, I'll be honest, there's a lull in fighting, so we can talk a little bit more broadly. At this moment in time, and from the notes, I'm in two minds for things. I've either regained control, or I've held back the flood for the time being. This is hindsight though, and it's potentially going to be self-serving, because I think a lot of the times coming back to look at an actual scenario, you can make it fit the narrative you want it to. And I've seen this a lot in some of the books I've read where they talk as much about how post-war people would write things up to fit what they want to fit. It's the same sort of idea. Looking at my notes, my main concern is now Shepherd's Hill, with the tanks that are continuing to mass in the woods just behind it. They do a little sort of jig forward and backward. I can't tell if this is the AI plan or if my artillery is causing them to pull back. But looking post-game, with a bit of clarity, I can see that position up on Shepherd Hill is quite a threatening Overwatch position. And I will admit, that is not a consideration I took. My expectation, as I keep coming back to, is they will move forward. They won't stop and have an Overwatch, which is quite naive to think, but I just thought they would trundle through. The hill on the left, so Mine Hill, this had a fairly decent Overwatch position as well. It was quite an impressive view down into the town. But this is pretty much being handled by the two Strikers at the back of Calbecht and partially by Milan and Helicopter. The north-south road, that's calmed down as well. So I believe between the tanks and the helicopter again, we are handling this quite comfortably. And I am now moving up 11 platoon to look round the bend through the woods and see how this is looking. But it is Shepherd's Hill that is my concern right now. So I don't really know what's going on up there. It feels like the panic to move those second pair of Strikers over to Calbecht from the 248 embankment has left me open. So not only did they cover the north-south road and back up the tanks, in effect, from where they were on the embankment, they could see to Shepherd Hill. And now all I have really is the forward air controller and the artillery spotters up on the roof. Everything else that would have either engaged things on Shepherd's Hill or spotted things on Shepherd's Hill, that's out of the picture. But yeah, what we've had running in the background is basically turn 26 through to about turn 34. Where all we really see is artillery, airstrikes, and a lull whilst we're waiting for the Soviets' next move. So yeah, Shepherd's Hill in the centre there remains quite a concern. This is now picking up on turn 33, I believe, or 34. Most of what we've got going on at Shepherd's Hill is artillery and airstrikes. In particular, the Harriers, they've been useful with... Oh, here comes a bomb. So, the bomb makes a big old crater, but I think in terms of the accuracy, the gun runs have been more effective. You can actually see impacts on the targets. But I've chosen this turn to come back in at because we at some point make contact in Calbecht Wood. So there we go, Calbecht Wood, we've just heard APCs and we begin to make spots on some kind of infantry pushing towards Calbecht. So again, this is a closer look at Calbecht bomb coming in. And that makes a massive crater over here, but the vehicles are up on the top of the hill. This vehicle's gone. I think the other thing we do spot in this turn is some activity up on the north-south road with 11 platoon. we take a casualty here, so that is a single man wounded, trying to mop up the crew that have fled into the woods on the side there. We also have this tank rush forward and take out a second man on the road, but again I think this is handled in the next turn by the tank line. So picking up on the next turn, that tank's now pushing up the north-south road, and I think we just saw one of the chieftains bounce off there, but they start pummeling that at the corner. And then the focus down here is Calbecht Woods with some kind of infantry group heading in towards Calbecht. We are better set this time, so we actually have the engineers in Calbecht. They have their vehicles alongside. Down here you've got the mortars, but they will end up in a back and forth with whatever this formation is coming from the woods. Judging from the surface-to-air missile that we spotted there, I wonder at this point in my notes whether it is some kind of support company. North-south road is looking pretty good, so 11 platoon is clearing that up to confirm we've destroyed the tanks coming down here. Once they've confirmed that, we can probably retask them in the centre or over on the left. We can probably free up some of the tanks here too. And then in terms of the back and forth coming on down here, we're now looking probably at a support company in the woods coming through. We've brought up a few of our vehicles, so these are the 432s from the engineers. They've also got Spartans as well, but we've brought basically a few more machine guns into play because the difficulties I'm having with self-loading rifles. They do have a GPMG within the platoon, but majority of the sections, so the engineer sections, they've got SLR and submachine guns, Sterlings. So turn 37, the main focus really is 11 platoon clearing the north-south road. They slowly patrol through just to confirm we've taken everything out, which we have. Looks like we've destroyed a tank company between our tanks and the helicopter. And I suppose again, looking more broadly at how I've been playing the British forces in Cold War, I found this has been a lot of the relationship between infantry and armour. So the armour's winning the fight, the infantry's often mopping up at the end. Turn 41, our reinforcements arrive on the edge of the map here, and a few things actually start to pan out. So the supporting BMPs, they start to push to the edge of Calbecht Woods and really starting to come under pressure with the engineers. So again, self-loaded rifles and a few GPMGs, but now they're facing off against infantry fighting vehicles against 432s. That's not a great situation to be in. 11 platoon, they've cleared the north-south road, so they are mounting up, and I'm starting to figure out how I want to counterattack across Shepherd Hill. And on Shepherd Hill we have tanks pushing down again to the edge here. They begin brassing up previous positions, but these are empty, so there's nothing really being hit. So turn 41, we've got quite a bit going on. Up on the left, Mine Hill, that's clear. So the tanks that were at the brow of the hill, they're defeated by the ATGMs at the back of Calbecht. Over on the right, north-south road has been cleared, so the tank company there has been defeated. But in the centre, we're now looking at a mass of armour pushing down Shepherd Hill, and then a mass of infantry and infantry fighting vehicles pushing onto Calbecht from the woods. There's limited AT weaponry facing Shepherd's Hill, so what we have is two of the tanks on the north-south road freed up to watch on to the centre. We also have a Milan join 11 platoon. They're going to push down to give us some kind of anti-tank weaponry down here. But the focus here, I suppose, is the engineers versus the wood. And again, this is the disbalance that I don't really want to be fighting. The engineers against the infantry covers a lot of the problems we have playing as the British. So it's the battle rifle against the assault rifle, it is the APC against the IFV, and I just decide to pull them away from the forward edge of town, deeper into the Calbecht itself, and I'm going to have the reinforcement tanks pass through here to tackle this on their way to counterattack on the left. So it's not looking great for the Soviets in Calbecht right now, with tanks on the railroad or coming through town on the way for the counterattack. Now on the counterattack, we'll pan back out for a little bit to just talk through that. The tanks that we came in as reinforcements, they are going to push through and round, and they are going to hit the rear or flank of what remains in the centre on Shepherd's Hill. And then 11 platoon down here, they are preparing to have a localised counterattack up onto Shepherd's Hill. And the intention I've got there, or that we'll see play out, they managed to take out these vehicles here. So there's a few command vehicles. It's probably the headquarters of the enemy forces. They do not push beyond the spine, so they can't exploit beyond. There's no point. We're having a bunch of tanks come in. It makes no sense. But what they will do, and what we'll see, is they will manage to knock out these vehicles and then push into the woods on the downslope of this hill, and they're going to act as a backstop effectively. So anything that's destroyed or anything that has people debus, anything that gets caught up in the counterattack coming in from the left, if it falls back into the woods, they're going to catch them coming down the hill. So it takes about 3 minutes for the lead troop of D Squadron to wipe out or break up the Calbecht attack. We've also got mortars falling into the woods, sort of disrupting there. And then from other indirect fire, we've had the air control team and the forward observer calling in fire onto Shepherd Hill. With that, what we see, so you can kind of make it out there, the T-64s are doing a sort of back and forth between the Overwatch position. And you can make out as well the sort of cratering that we've had there. I can't tell if this is an AI plan or if this is panicked withdrawal from all of that fire. And then I suppose the other thing we can look at is the 248 embankment strikers. So one of these got knocked out here, the remainder is here, and it's struggling to get eyes onto Shepherd's Hill. So we're still struggling with AT weaponry facing Shepherd's Hill. Now, part of the reason that I raised this is just the problems that you always encounter when you have anti-tank guided missiles, and that's primarily the speed that the missile travels at. It is slower than a cannon round, and so you need to spot and fire first, but then you also need to not be spotted, which is why I'm struggling with the striker right now. So they could get out there, they could spot and guide onto a target, but if they are spotted firing at somebody, in all likelihood they're going to return fire, knock me out, and then the missile will just sail into the ground. By turn 49, I'm happy that the tanks have wiped out the infantry fighting vehicles in Calbecht, so they pull away. And then up on Shepherd's Hill, we call in a bombardment on the hill that's going to precede the actual infantry pushing forward. Turn 50, the infantry start moving. They're on hunt orders, which is useful to prevent them overdoing it, but at the same time is a bit frustrating because you just saw there they stopped to tackle this just single crewman. I think we just wiped out another tank there, and we start making more spots onto the anti-aircraft guns. So again, I think between the anti-aircraft guns and this observer vehicle, this really does look like the HQ. So yeah, the infantry make pretty light work of the tanks on Shepherd's Hill at that close range, with no infantry support on the Soviet side. They knock out an observer vehicle and one of the anti-aircraft guns, and they manage to push one of the tanks off into the woods on the spine of the hill. Then in Calbecht we've had the chieftains from the lead troop of D Squadron forming up by the mortars. Next interesting thing, once the 11 platoon counterattack has taken out those vehicles on Shepherd's Hill, I suppose, is another sort of wasteful push by the Soviets from Calbecht Woods onto Calbecht. This time the engineers can handle it on their own. They're calling in some mortar fire, which is pretty effective. That's falling amongst the actual attackers. And we've released the lead troop of D Squadron, so they're going to work their way up, round the gap in the minefield, and then loop round to do the counterattack on Shepherd Hill. 5 minutes later, we're pretty much ready to spring into action. So there is a massive preparatory bombardment happening on Shepherd's Hill. We have 11 platoon in position on the downslope of Shepherd's Hill Wood, and then we have the lead troop of D Squadron ready to push off once this bombardment finishes. Engineers are pretty much just wrapping up with whatever's going on here. Still not really having any impact on us. It's really easy to handle by this point. So we're all set to go. We have our tanks in position, we have our artillery pummeling them up on Shepherd's Hill, we have 11 platoon as the backstop, everything's ready to go for our glorious charge across the slopes of Mine Hill. And this all looks very exciting, but this doesn't happen. This is me going back, trying again, because what actually happens is there's a surrender. So, Soviet army surrenders, total victory to us. We have had 20 men killed, 9 wounded, 3 armoured vehicles lost, and 1 of the aircraft got knocked out. And the Soviets have lost 138 men killed, 33 wounded, 26 tanks wiped out, 15 armoured vehicles lost. So, just to show you, they're still back here, basically. That never happened. What we had there was, I loaded up a turn, so this is turn 63, I believe. I loaded up turn 62 and tried the push, and I think what the game has basically is a probability of surrender. I managed to keep playing. They must have been right on the cusp, because I got to turn 65, reloading it, and again shot this chap, and then they surrendered, basically. So let's have a quick look at the map. I'll load up a sort of map view and try and cover it neatly, but basically what we were facing, if we can find them, is a tank battalion. And the tank battalion is made up of, so 3 Company was over on Mine Hill, pushing down this direction. I think in this, oh, that's good luck. 2nd Company was pushing up the centre and Shepherd's Hill. 1st Company is dead, but 1st Company was pushing up the north-south road. And then this final company here, again the company commander is dead. 4th Company was the mechanised infantry, and it looks like they actually were a mix of so a weapons platoon, or machine gun platoon, and then actual infantry platoons. So back in our northwest corner looking southeast, this is the sort of layout that we've got for the tank battalion. So 3 companies of tanks and 1 company of mechanised infantry. And they came at us in this sort of fashion. The tank company on the North-South Road has completely been annihilated. The tank companies on the Shepherd Hill and Mine Hill, they've both been reduced severely, and likewise for the mechanised infantry in Calbecht Wood. They're actually, at this moment in time, probably each about platoon strength. Now this is our layout in terms of where we sit currently at the end of the battle. And I suppose this gives us a sort of coverage something like this. There's little pockets of armour still on the battlefield. We have some gaps in our lines now that will probably want to be reorganised. But that's our general disposition. And I think the final thing I'll probably do is look back at the game just to show you some of the problems that the Soviets probably came up against. And I suppose some of the things that I think have got me again thinking about gameplay, thinking about what there is to take away from this, and how I found playing as the Brits in the Cold War.